Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and today I've got a doozy for you. I've brought in play designer Zac Elsik to tell you about one of his favorite Commander decks. Now, if you've ever heard Zac's name before, it's probably because he popularized the Lantern Control deck in Modern, so he is a wild deck builder, and today is no exception. He's got a Zacama deck for you, but it's not the kind of Zacama you would expect. No. This is a Zacama Counterspells deck. Yes, you heard that right. Red, white, and green counterspells. No one can tell it like Zac can, so take it away.
I'm Zac Elsik. I am a play designer at Magic R&D, and I wanted to show off one of my favorite Commander decks, Zacama Primal Calamity. This is a special deck to me because this dinosaur shares part of my name, and it's a unique control deck built around using counterspells. Zacama makes for a great control finisher for a few reasons. One, when you cast her, you get to untap all of your lands, which is great for holding up counter magic and other things. Two, you get a whole bunch of abilities. And three, she attacks and defends at the same time. Let's look at the counterspells. For starters, we have Illumination and Artifact Blast, which are both hard counters for artifacts and or enchantments. Then there's Lapse of Certainty, which kind of works like a memory lapse, delaying a spell. Burnout, which is somewhat a conditional counterspell, but you can always cast it to target any instant if you just need the cantrip. Everyone's favorite Mana Tithe, which, believe it or not, works more often than you would think. Mage's Contest, which is one of my personal favorites. You get to bid life to choose if the spell resolves or not. A little bit easier to make happen when your commander, Zacama, helps gain life. There's Bind, which counters activated abilities, and then Dawn Charm, which helps protect you, or it just fogs. Next up are the conditional counterspells, which are great for foiling your opponent's plans. You have Reroute and Ricochet Trap, which both change the target of a spell, which can be as simple as a removal spell on your commander, or you can change counterspells to target either of these cards, and that'll effectively counter the counterspell. Skyshroud Blessing, mostly just a cantrip, but occasionally you get in spots where giving lands a shroud is relevant. Similarly, Vines of the Vastward you can use to protect your commander, pump your commander, or if you're clever, target one of your opponent's creatures when they try to get suited up with an equipment or aura or what have you, and it will counter that spell. Dromoka's Command is mostly used for stopping burn spells. Hollowed Moonlight is awesome at stopping reanimation, flickering effects when the creatures come back in, token generation, you name it. Equal Treatment is a curious card in that it pretty much sets all the damage that creatures and players would receive for the turn to 2, which is curious for heavy burn spells like Blasphemous Act, or if you're being attacked. Next up is the package of regrowth effects. Cards like Regrowth and Naya Charm that let you buy back a card from your graveyard to use again. There's plenty of these effects in green, and they're extra useful in this deck because you may have noticed there's not very many counterspells in Naya, so we have to make do with the ones we have. Green offers a way to rebuy those. Holistic Wisdom is one of the best cards to do that because it lets you continually swap out cards from your hand to buy back counterspells from your graveyard. There's a bunch that, like Praetor Councils and Seasons Past, that let you buy back a bunch at once, as well as cards like Fossil Find, Make-A-Wish, and Reap the Past, which let you buy back cards at random. Then I have a bunch of red cards that are used for copying spells. Most of these can copy anybody's spell and are pretty handy. These cards also serve a dual purpose in copying your own regrowth effects to get cards back from your graveyard, so you can get even more counterspells back. Like any deck with a 9-mana commander, this one has plenty of ramp cards. You've got your basics like Cultivate and Kadama's Reach, Ranger's Path and Skyshroud Claim, Nissa's Renewal and Tempt with Discovery, all of which pull out multiple lands. Veteran Explorer serves a similar role. Safe Right Quest simply gets a land. Similarly, Thematic Compass, you can use each turn to get lands up until you have 7. Oath of Lieges is probably one of my favorite cards in this deck. It really gets the game rolling, helping you ramp out to catch up to other players that are ramping ahead of you. Next up is the removal package. Got cheap sweepers such as Blasphemous Act and Slaughter the Strong. Exile sweepers like Final Judgment and Descend Upon the Sinful. No dinosaur deck is complete without Star of Extinction, the ultimate sweeper. And one of my favorite cards, Settle the Wreckage, which is a great instant speed defense for when people figure out that you're the threat and try to take you out. Then I have some universal answers like Chaos Warp, Beasts Within, and Unexpectedly Absent. Usually mana is not an issue, but being able to answer anything is. And then finally, Struggle to Survive. On the surface, it's just a removal spell, but often Survive works as Graveyard Hate. It's also a fun combo card, with the card we'll get to in a moment. Then we have a bunch of the utility or fun cards, such as Pull from Eternity, that lets you take a card in exile and put it into the graveyard. Really cool way to stop a creature from coming back in if it was flickered. You can also combine it with your Struggle to Survive card, which you put Survive back into the graveyard, or you can cast it again, which will shuffle back in the Pull from Eternity. Sets up for an endless loop. Direfleet Daredevil is one of my personal favorite cards to cast in Commander. There's always something juicy to grab from someone's graveyard. Grass's Bounty, aside from generating a bunch of mana, works really well with a lot of our fork effects. Teferi's Protection, all around good card to protect yourself. Klothys is a new one that I'm trying. Kind of does a little bit of everything while sitting and play for a while. Mirari is a really sweet one. It can double your spells, such as regrowth effects, to get more cards back. Mirari's Wake, simple mana doubling. Bonds of Mortality, I've really enjoyed this enchantment. It disables Hexproof and Indestructible. You can also use it as a politics card so that other people can interact with Hexproof and Indestructible creatures. And then Sylvan Library, which lets you draw a bunch of cards, especially since your commander can gain you the life back. And finally, the lands. 3 crucial utility lands. Reliquary Tower, which gives you the unlimited hand size to hold however many counterspells you need. Bonder's Enclave, which helps draw cards while you have your commander out. And Rogue's Passage, which acts as a great way to finish off your opponents by making your 9/9 commander unblockable. And that's it. It has been a blast every time I play it and get a lot of surprised looks on many faces. I would love to hear what you think about the deck on Twitter, or if you can think of any red, green, or white counterspells I might have missed. And thank you, Gavin, for letting me share this deck.
Part of why I love Commander so much is that it allows decks like this to exist, so hats off to you, Zach. And you all watching can find the deck list in the description below. And while you're there, leave a comment. Let Zach know what he should try out in his deck. I'll talk with you again on Monday, and in the meantime, may your opponent never see the Mana Tithe coming. You got this.